Hey everyone, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and do the video response on education, the internet, and social media. There are two things that are going to be incredibly integral to understanding the relationship between education, the internet, and social media. And it's first the impact that social media has on learning, and second, the impact that we've seen within the public education system. But primarily starting with the impact on learning that we've seen with social media, it's overwhelmingly been what most would consider a negative thought. Think about it when you're interacting in your classrooms. Most professors are very clear that they don't want any cell phones, they don't want any social media, and they want nothing to do with any sort of media devices. Why? Because people consider them a distraction. While Facebook did begin at Harvard, it's actually seen that Facebook and other social media platforms have an incredibly negative impact on people's learning outcomes and their ability to completely understand the material that they are learning. A study was done and it found that individuals that used Facebook in the university setting had a full grade lower or half a GPA point lower than individuals that did not. While people do say that correlation does not equal causation, this does not mean that we don't have the opportunity to recognize some of the implicit impacts that social media can have on a classroom setting. Not only does it decrease individuals' attention spans, but it also negatively impacts the feedback loops that can happen within schools. Why, you may ask? This is simply because of the fact that people are going to be incredibly distracted by the ideas of us needing to pay attention to the media that is going on around us instead of just the learning outcomes that we have to be looking towards. But even further than that, for those that recognize that correlation does not equal causation, they say that it is simply because people that use Facebook may just be a little bit more distracted than others. But either way, what we can recognize is that social media is necessarily distracting within your classes, especially when you do things like meme your professors or live tweet your classes. But then we can also look at the impact that internet has had on the public education system. And contrary to what most people believe, it's actually been incredibly positive. First and foremost, it has allowed for people to have access to more media and more learning resources. A lot of schools have started introducing computers instead of textbooks and are giving students the opportunity to find ways outside of just their stereotypical textbooks to learn and to be able to apply the information that they are being handed within the classroom. A part of this is actually doing things like introducing wireless internet on buses. Now, this seems contrary because now we're extending the academic day before 8 and after 3, but what it actually does is we've seen that it increases the grades that students have if they're engaged in extracurriculars. Think about it like this. If you're on the football team and you have an hour and a half to get to the away game that you're going to, and you also have homework to do on the Friday night, instead of having to wait until after the game to do it, now that you have your laptop and wireless internet within the school bus, you have the opportunity to do what the text calls a study hall on wheels. And it is actually an opportunity that we've seen be afforded to a lot of students and give them the opportunity to continue to understand what the merit of their education is. But even further than that, we have to continue to recognize the implications that internet does have. Just like social media in the university setting, we can see these problems arise in the public education system as well, which is why schools still have to be incredibly cautious when monitoring whether or not students on school internet can have access to things like Facebook, things like Twitter, things like Instagram, or if they're going to completely firewall them off. The other flip side to this is that it does begin to establish a disparity within education systems for school districts that can't provide widespread internet or widespread technology to all of their different students. And while this still may be not one of the largest impacts that we see with the introduction of the internet into the education system, we also see that it does play an uneven role when we look back at the university setting, specifically because then there are classrooms that are more technologically integrated and there are others that aren't, but both of them are expecting students of either background to function within the same classroom. So when we take a step back and we look at the interaction that we have with the education system, the internet, and social media, we see that it is a double-edged sword. While it has significant benefits like allowing for students to continue to study on the road while they're going to their extracurricular activities, it also does serve as a direct disadvantage and a distraction to the students. But we also see that within the university setting. Now, whether or not Facebook users in a university are just generally distracted or their lower grade does have something to do with them using Facebook, we may never know. But what we can overall understand is that the internet has its pros and cons, especially within the education system.